Hello everyone, this is Team 11 and I am presenter of first part, Hee-Soo-jeon. Firstly, we are going to explain about our overall system and then continue demonstration with our website in another video. The order of the presentation is like this: topic description, recommendation process, dataset explanation, recommendation algorithm, and then about the evaluation method. Our team's recommendation is about wine. When the user wants to get recommendation about wine, then our system will recommend a set of wines that will fit to the user's preference. The reason why we've got into this topic is started from the great variety of wines. There are over 120,000 of wines, and their name seems really difficult and strange to the beginner like us. And in our team, there are 3 people who came from France and they know quite more about wine, and 3 people who came from Korea. So we have decided to recommend wine to the beginner and also to the people who have experience to wines by various filters. The filters are like this: variety, vintage, country, title, price, province, and description, and these are the typical characteristics of wines. Then I'm going to introduce the overall recommendation process. First, the user will give some information to the system, like whether he likes sweet or bitter taste, whether he have experience with wine like that. Based on that information, the system will save the information about user profile and preference. And when user gets recommendation after tasting that wines, user can store or delete from My Wine List. Based on the wine list, system will implement content-based recommendation and recommend more wines that will fit to the user preference by various predictors. Next, let's move on to datasets and data processing part. We searched for various data and got this 25,000 kinds of wine dataset based on points from experts. This data had vintage, country, province, price, title, variety, fields. However, province and variety and vintage columns are not familiar to the beginners. So we've got another dataset from Kaggle. It has 120,000 kind of wine based on some fields. And the fields are quite similar, but additionally it has description. From these descriptions, we process the data to adding the columns for flavors. For example, here is one description for a wine, and it seems quite long and not intuitive for newbies. So we extracted some important words in here, like colored words in here. So especially about flavor, which are quite intuitive to the newbies. We have set 5 columns for flavor: acidity, tannin, body, sweet, and fruit. Also, we have added some characteristics for spicy, earthy, smoky, flowery, and herb. We did this by NLTK library, tokenizing the description and lemmatize and stemize the words, and then finally filtering the words. This was quite enough, but we thought this research can easily ignore the popularity of wine. If the recommendation is so rare that the user cannot find it anywhere, then it is somewhat awkward. Therefore, we created finer dataset about top famous wine for ordinary people. To sum up, we use 3 datasets: top famous, typical characteristics data, and flavor tag data that processed from the description data. Now I'm going to explain about the recommendation algorithm overview. Our recommendation contains 2 kinds of recommendation. One is knowledge-based and the other is content-based. First, knowledge-based part asks a question for the new user for saving the user preference. First is, have you ever tasted wine before? And if the user says yes, then the user can enter what wine there, and this makes the system save the user contents. And if the user says no, which means he is newbie to the wine, and then we will ask some easy questions to get user preference data like this, about sweetness, acidity, fruity, and others. By this, the system can extract user preference. In knowledge based on the user profile, system recommend 5 wines. 3 are from 25,000 data, and these are from top famous wines, which matches the user preference. And secondly, for the content-based recommendation, it uses My Wine List by users' response, which indicates users' preferred wines. Content-based part uses largely 2 methods. One is cosine similarity, and the other is TF-IDF. For the country, province, variety, price, we use former one, and for the description part, we use latter one. We use TF-IDF for this part, which we learned on class, and it is calculated in this way. You can compare the TF-IDF score between the wines easily. The final score of content-based is calculated in this way, and finally 5 to 10 are recommended in order of high scores. Our algorithm makes the system with no cold start problem, no first rater problem, and finally recommend wines with users' unique taste. To summarize, for the beginner, we ask questions about price and flavor, which are quite familiar tasks for beginner, and for knowledge-based, and recommend 3 based on 25,000 data, and recommend 2 wines from top famous wine data. And for the users who already have experience, we get wine's name from the users, and recommend wine based on the characteristics like province, variety, year, and other based on similar wine recommendation. The user can add or delete from My Wine List. This continues, and after getting many times of recommendation, the user can have more unique and accurate recommendation based on the updated My Wine List. And the last part is about evaluation method. How can we evaluate our recommendation system? First, we thought we can just get rating from user, and if the rating is high, then it means this works well. However, we have not enough users for this short period time of project, and we thought it is not reliable. So we used 80-20% validation. For the 80% part of My Wine List, we extract it for another list. And then for the left 20%, we compare the similarity for the first 80%. If the similarity is high, then it means the recommendation worked well with consistent flow. So this was end of our presentation, and thank you for listening.